Hi everyone, this is your host Prasha and welcome to our STEM Stories episode number 87. And today we're talking to another fantastic scientist, Nour, who is a molecular psychiatry postdoctoral fellow at Yale University. I know there's so many questions going on in your head about Nour, and I can't wait to share this phenomenal story with you. Before we get there, I just want to quickly say, if you leave us a review on iTunes, I will read them starting in January. So please leave us a review and tell us how we're doing. So let's get started.
Welcome to Her STEM Story, a podcast about real women with extraordinary science, technology, engineering, and mathematics stories. In this show, we'll talk to some absolutely inspiring women and highlight some women-led organizations in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We'll learn more about their work, their struggles, and how they think we can close the gender gap in STEM professions. Keep listening to get inspired.
So Twitter is my favorite social media platform, especially for meeting new guests. And I met today's guests on Twitter as well. Her name is Nour Al-Muthazif. She is a postdoctoral fellow in molecular psychiatry at Yale University. She's passionate about mental health, making academia more inclusive, and cats. Nour grew up in DC and Maryland to immigrant parents and is first in her family to earn a PhD degree. She completed her doctoral work in the field of neuropharmacology. I know what you're thinking. She's going to explain all that. And she loves cats. She also loves to write for Twitter. And she discusses her experiences with a lot of passion on Twitter. She loves to write science parodies using hit songs such as Let It Go and Truth Hurts. So she is a phenomenal advocate for inclusivity, and let's talk to Nour to learn more about her amazing STEM story. Hi, Nour. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, this is so cool that we got connected through Twitter and we could do this interview.
It's wonderful. That's why I love Twitter.
I know, Twitter is so cool. It's an animal in itself, and it's a really difficult platform to hone into. And you've done such a great job by building your own amazing community there. And what's that one thing do you think that people don't realize about Twitter?
That it can be used. I don't know if people within outside of academia realize that people use it to share papers, share their science with others. And like, honestly, I know more about my science through Twitter than I do through finding papers on my own, because people share stuff and that's how I find out about it. So I think that's one really cool thing.
So what hashtags do you think they should use to look up research?
I typically just try to follow people who are interested in the same type of research. And then there are certain people that like all they do is post papers. And I follow them and rely on them. But bioarchives, which is our for neuroscience, that's the preprint website we have, and you can, each subsection of the journal has a Twitter you can follow, and they'll post the articles all the time. So those would probably be how I would go about it.
That's super cool. I didn't know that about Twitter.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And so you study molecular psychiatry.
Yes.
What is that? That is, oh my God. I thought I've seen everything on this show, but I guess I'm just getting started. So tell us, what is molecular psychiatry?
It's, let's see. Do I know what it is? It's looking at psychiatric illnesses or disorders in the framework of how the cellular or the molecular differences or changes that occur in the brain. So, for example, I look at cocaine addiction. So I'm looking how the certain neurons change during cocaine addiction. So I would say that's what molecular psychiatry is, basically understanding the molecular mechanisms underlying psychiatric disorders.
Interesting. So it's pretty much like neuroscience behind, behind the addiction piece.
It also includes, I think, it's a little broader in the sense that it also includes what's going on in the body. So not just like more in the, I guess, the non-brain area, and how that connects to the illnesses as well. So like, how does your gut, for example, feed into it?
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. So it's more holistic, not just the brain part, but also like the entire body.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Because I feel like there's just so many levels to addiction itself that it's glad to know that there are universities like yourself, which is Yale, which I think is so cool that you go to Yale and, you are doing such good job in terms of like a lot of wonderful research that will help and protect humans from self-destruction, if you will.
Yes. And I think that's another thing is because it is a lot of neuroscience, but because we work closely with clinicians, we are able to see we approach it slightly differently because we get to hear from clinicians what they see in the clinic. And then it gives more of not a validity, but it helps us fully understand why we're studying, what we're studying. So I think that's why I really enjoy it.
That's awesome. I have one more question in terms of, so I always wonder because I'm not in PhD world and I don't, this is through the show only that I've got in touch with so many PhDs. I still remember when I first interviewed a PhD neuroscience candidate and I thought, oh my God, like this person has to be, they were the first neuroscientist I met. So I feel like there's just, it's a new world for me. So, and I'm sure for some of our audience members too. So tell us what is a postdoctoral position? Like, what does that mean? And what does that entail? Does that become your lifelong job or what's next when it comes to, again, like just how the postdoctoral world works?
Yeah, for sure. I would say it's kind of like residency for MDs. So after you finish your PhD, if you're interested in going into academia and becoming a full-time professor, you are encouraged to do a postdoc or a postdoctoral fellowship. So it used to be, around 2 years, and then you can go and apply to faculty positions. But now it's, 6 to 8 years.
Wow.
It's just getting longer. But it's just an additional set of training where you're not fully independent yet. You have a mentor, you have a PI or like principal investigator that you're working under, but you have your own project. And so it's just like that in-between phase where you have to start being a lot more independent. You have to be the driving force behind your project, but you're still kind of working with someone and under them, and they're still training you in a sense.
So that's like if you included all your education, let's say bachelor's, master's, if you did master's, but PhD and then postdoc. How long do you think this whole phase is? Like 10 years maybe or more?
If you include bachelor's probably more like 15.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's 4 or 5 and then a little more. It used to be the postdoc used to be 2 years and you could like get a faculty position and it was totally fine. You only had to do one, but now it's a little longer. And it varies from field to field. So computational neuroscientists don't do as long as a postdoc. But for us, I'm more of a molecular cellular. So it's more wet work and it takes a little bit longer.
Yeah. So what keeps you motivated? Like, what's your secret to persevering through so much schooling? Now, I mean, mind you, like a lot of doctors go through a lot of schooling, engineers go through a lot of schooling. So, I mean, if anyone's listening, this is not to scare anyone that don't do PhD, but just out of curiosity, like how this path looks like, and what keeps you like engaged through so much training, right? I mean, there's a lot of training. So,
and you're not getting paid much as a postdoc either.
Yeah.
I think before I started this journey or even getting my PhD, I sat down and thought about it and thought if this is like, what do I want to get out of a PhD? and or the postdoc, and what is it gonna lead to? And I decided for now I do want to be in academia. I want to become a professor, and to do so I have to go through PhD and postdoc. But I made a conscious effort of deciding like what am I going to get out of this. And I luckily also had a professor, my mentor in grad school was also kind of approach students in this sense of like he trained each student to do what they needed to do. So I told him I really enjoyed teaching, so he let me explore those options, even if they took up significant amounts of time. He knew that this is something I needed in order to pursue what I wanted to pursue in the future. So I think just realizing that, it's not just like motions that you're going through, but there are specific things that you're taking and are building upon. It really helps kind of get through it. And of course, I think having a good mentor and having a good lab, just people that are going to support you when things aren't working. Which does happen, obviously. And people who are going to constantly be there for you and help you think through things. That really makes the difficult time less difficult.
Because it's a lot of commitment to the cause, and to also to like what you want to do in life. So you have to be like very clear, or at least if not very clear, at least somewhat have that direction that, hey, like if you want to teach, this is the way to go about it. And again, once you get tenured, all this work is going to pay off, I'm sure. Right?
Exactly,
And so academia is anyways, has a bad reputation, at least in the circles that I'm in. I don't think that's the full picture or full story anyways, but there's a lot of negative stuff coming out from academia, especially if you're on Twitter and stuff. And I want to jump in more on that. But before we get there, I do want to know a little bit about where do you come from? What got you interested in this field of STEM? And, just a little bit of background.
So I'm actually learning a little more about that. Recently I went to visit my mom, and my niece was sitting next to us, and I was like, oh, I wonder what she's thinking, what's going on through her head. And my mom like rolls her eyes at me, and she's like, you've been asking that question since you're 5 years old. And I didn't realize that I've been asking neuroscience-based questions since I was such a little kid. Or even when I was sick, I would tell my mom, like, and she would give me medicine and I'd be like, what is it doing inside of my body? And she's just like, I can't deal with you right now because I don't know and I don't want to answer. But yeah, ever since I was like, I know it sounds cliche, but I was always interested in what was going on inside. But I didn't know what the word was for that. Like I didn't know that I was interested in pharmacology and physiology or neuroscience. I just knew I liked science. So I went to during my bachelor's, I got a bachelor's in biochemistry because I know I liked it more than I really liked the organic chemistry. I know a lot of people hate it, but I like it.
I love it too. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's so interesting to me. But I still, like, to be honest, I was still lost. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I need this degree. Like, let's do it. And then I graduated and I applied to so many jobs, and I got one interview and one offer, and that was in a pharmacology department. And pharmacology, I know I don't think it's as well known as a field, but for those who don't know, it's the study of the physiology of the body and the brain, and how to develop medications for that. And also understanding how, like, it's understanding once you take a medication, like how fast your body processes it and how long it will stay in your body, for example. So once I was in that department and I was surrounded by students, PhD students and academics, and going to seminars, I realized that this was, I finally had the word for what I was interested in, and it was pharmacology. And that's why after 3 years of working as a tech, I applied for PhD programs in pharmacology mainly, and some physiology. And then I got my PhD. I actually stayed at Georgetown because I was a research tech at Georgetown, studying nicotine addiction. And then which was fun. And then I applied to PhD programs. I got in one other place, but I enjoyed the environment at Georgetown, so I decided to stay there for my PhD, but I did it in a different lab. And so that's up to my PhD. And then I did a year postdoc in a bad lab.
Yes. And I want to learn more about that. And then you got into Yale, which is so cool.
Yes.
Which is so cool. And very close to where I live.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I live in Providence.
Oh, yeah, that is very close.
Yeah, so that's in New England, which is great. So tell us a little bit about that experience. And, that was my question. Thank you for answering pharmacology, because I had that on. I was like, I need to know what this is. I've never heard about it. And
it's not forms or anything like that.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Is it pharmacology? Is this the same as pharmacy? And
that's a question a lot of people have. And it's similar in a sense. We just dissect a little more into it.
Super interesting. So tell us a little bit about your toxic experience in academia. And, the way I would want to know about it is more in terms of, maybe the conflict, if you can state it openly. Yeah. And then, we'll get into how you kind of got out of it, because I think that's where a lot of value is as well.
Yeah, definitely. What was I going to say? So actually, I can talk about how I got the first postdoc, because I think it is, take away the lab, how bad it was. It is a common way to get a postdoc. And I encourage people to do this. The person who gave a talk, the person I worked with gave a talk at a seminar at a conference and said that they were hiring postdocs. And I just went up to them and told them that I was looking for a postdoc. So that's how I went about that. But so things, all right, let's see. I'm trying to think of where to start. Things were, it was very clear from the beginning things weren't okay. But I just kind of kept making excuses in my head for it. Like one of the worst things that first occurred within the first few months I worked was the PI asked me to, I guess I took too long of a time in their opinion to give them something, and they wanted me to give them an Excel sheet that detailed hour by hour how long it took me to do everything, which was a little, I don't know, not to say like, oh, well, as a postdoc, I don't need you to be micromanaging me, but there is something to say when someone completes a PhD, they've completed a set of trainings, and should be given slightly more independence. So that was one of the things. It was like a lot of control over my time, and demanding I work 6 days a week, which you can always open up that conversation, like, do you need to work more to be successful in science or not? That happens a lot on, we talk about that on Twitter a lot. But then they would tell me that, oh, if you don't work 6 days a week, you won't be successful in science. Or if you're not tougher and like less sensitive, you won't be successful in science. It's the classical abuser words. Like, I feel like they all get a handbook on what to say.
They all probably hang out together.
I know, right? Because it's like, I feel like it's sometimes they do things and you're like, I feel like you literally read a handbook about how to be an abuser.
But I think also because I feel like a lot of our experiences are a reflection of what happened to us. And, we want to pass it on because we really don't want to deal with it. And, this happens in like parents and children loop too, where parents will pass on their the abuses that they had or the problems that they had onto the next generation. And it's really interesting that, we're not like, we don't have any room for self-reflection, any room for like, that we can do things a little differently than how they were done to us.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's very, it is a an interesting,
toxic loop for sure.
yeah.
For everyone involved. So then you had this experience, you know, they were not nice to you. And then what happened? Like, so this was a few months into it. And then, you know, when did you have the realization that this is not where I want to be?
So after around a year, things kept building up. And I had given in and said I would work 6 days a week. And I had told them a schedule that I was going to follow. But something happened, as things do with science. And I didn't do what I said I would, the general schedule that I said I would follow. And they said to me, so you're just abandoning your schedule. And I don't know, something just like snapped in me.
Yeah.
I was like, no. I'm not working a 9, I worked at Best Buy when I was in high school. And then I had a schedule, that I had to follow. Like I had to clock in at 10. But that was that kind of job, and I'm like, this is not that kind of job. Like I'm not here. And actually the week before that, he was trying to control what I tweeted. And that was also just like, no, that's a line you can't cross. And I just went to the site. That's to answer your question. That was the one thing that was just like, I can't do this anymore. And recognizing my worth and realizing that I don't belong there.
Yeah. Which I think is so brave. So first of all, like kudos to you for walking away, because a lot of times, and I hate to say this, but a lot of times women will stay in toxic environments longer than men because of lack of support from other places, and also because of lack of confidence altogether, right? So we were not raised to be brave, and we were not raised to be like we were raised to be submissive. Like we were raised to like agree and like fix things and not be wrong, and so it's like really easy to like bully.
And sometimes you'll internalize it and be like, well, maybe it was my fault.
Oh yes, 100%. Oh, for sure. And
it's like something I did.
And then we just like punish ourselves for it. And this is not just, this is your example is a great example for like labs and academia, where a lot of issues are happening because of the PI student relationship or PI postdoc PhD relationship. But this also holds true for other relationships in our lives, right? Abusive partners, abusive parents, abusive siblings, or abusive friends, so there's just a lot of things that we do allow. And it's just so brave of you to kind of step away from it. And so what was your like biggest, where did you find your biggest strength in that turmoil? Because I wonder if people who are listening are in the same situation. They're saying, hey, Nour, easy for you to say because you have a postdoc now at Yale and then I don't. So what would you say to that person who was, was probably you a few years ago? And what would you say, like, what was your source of strength?
Well, I do want to recognize that I am privileged in the sense, like, being here in America, I am an American citizen, and it's a lot easier for me to decide that, I'm just going to change my job. There's no worries about visas or anything. And like, I recognize that, that's a privilege. It took a lot of thinking, and I think the support system is probably the most important thing. So I surrounded myself with people who kept reminding me that it is better for me to get out of this really bad place and, suffer. Like, it might be hard in the meantime, but long term, it would be better. And I actually talked to people who were in my situation, and that helped, seeing them in a better place made me realize that it could be me. But it's hard, especially when you can't be in between jobs. Not everyone can be in between jobs. I had a lucky situation in which I had support from someone, because I had my own funding, and the person in charge of the funding said they would support me for a short period until I found a new job. so that was very lucky. I feel like I'm not fully answering, but
no, but I do think that, you said I think you're downplaying what you did, first of all, because I feel like it doesn't matter. Like, it's not lucky because you worked hard. I'm sure you worked hard to get funding too. I think it's smart, actually, because I feel like if you have, don't put your eggs in one basket, have some financial security, even if that means that, sometimes like in Eastern cultures, at least, and even in America, a lot of kids like don't tap on their biggest resource, and that's their parents. Like, that's a huge resource. I don't, even if your parents are, they didn't go to school, or they don't have a lot of money, I can promise you, if there's anyone in the world, there's most likely it'll be your parents who will come through.
If you have a good relationship with parents, like
they'll come through.
Or siblings,
they'll come through for you. I feel like family, and I realize not everyone has that liberty or luxury of reaching out to their family, but people who do, they also don't reach out. Like, I feel like kids who have good relationships or who are on talking terms with their family, like, really don't tap into this big resource, as you said, support system, which could literally just mean your mom or your dad. It doesn't, like, when we think about it, people feel like, oh, I need like this huge group of friends. And no, it just literally has to be a couple of like people who are able to guide you or mentor you. And as you said, like, you reached out to a lot of people. So if anyone is in that situation, I'm going to volunteer Nour, because you can talk to her on Twitter. She is very vocal and she really shares her mind openly, and I'm sure she'll be able to, even if it just means that, hey, I've been there, you'll be fine. Sometimes,
and my DMs are open. I'm more than happy. Like, if I'm mentally there, I'm more than happy to help.
Yes, and it doesn't mean that that we have to show someone every single step of the way, but it just means that when you can see it, you can be it. And so I absolutely love your story in terms of like how you overcame that, and I think you're still uncovering it. I guess you're still like untangling, like coming out of it. I do hope that you get to really unwind it and see your powerful strength, like yourself as that protagonist who kind of came out of this situation, because that's the hardest part. Like, to call ourselves a hero, or to call ourselves like, hey, look what I did, is like so hard. So
especially as women, I feel like you're taught to kind of downplay.
Yeah, and I heard a lot of that. You downplayed a lot of that. But
but it's learning that, yes, I did do something good.
Yeah, you did something fantastic, and you're inspiring a lot of other people. I know you do a lot of work in making science and academia more inclusive. Tell us a little bit about that, and what does that mean? Like, what does that mean to you when it comes to inclusion, being a double minority in STEM? Like, what does that world look like where academia becomes more inclusive?
I think it's where one thing that really gets me, to be honest, is the random comments made during seminars that are not inclusive, or just random comments in general in academic spaces. I would like to see a strong decrease in those, just because I don't think people realize how much that could affect someone who's sitting in a room and hears like a speaker joking, quote unquote joking about something that has to do with them, and how much that could like color your experience for the rest of the day. It's not like, you can go back, you don't check your luggage at the bag at the door when you go back to lab after an experience like that. It follows you. And it's going to influence your science. So I'd like to see an academic or like an environment where there aren't comments like that. And it could just be, you go and you learn about science, and it's not that, like, I'm not saying that science shouldn't be political, because it is, but in the sense of like, there shouldn't be, for example, I was in a seminar and someone made a joke about how, like, there being more than two genders is like a new thing or something like that. And I remember just rolling my eyes and being like, what's like, that added nothing
Yeah.
to conversation other than me knowing that you are not that great of a person.
Yeah.
So it's, I just, yeah.
Yeah. And I think the world's getting more diverse. That's, for sure. It's getting more diverse by the day. And like this, this whole new world that we're all living in, which is very like, there's a lot of, social media and a lot of different things happening. I feel like people should be, of course, more careful of what they're saying because, every step of the way, there's a lot of new things that are coming out, so that if you're ignorant, like outright, like it's not going to fly in 2020. Like that's not an excuse anymore that, oh, I'm so ignorant. Like that's
like I didn't
not
know.
cool. Yeah, that's not cool anymore. But also like from inclusivity standpoint, I think this is, there's a lot of different people working together in different fields. And I feel like the majority, which is unfortunately white men or fortunately or whatever, are kind of like oblivious to how diverse the world has become. Even though it may not show up in like those numbers, if you will, like 70% of America is still like white, and it doesn't mean anything because you have these academic circles and your circles that are growing and becoming more diverse by the day. So especially in STEM.
Definitely.
And I love how you said that it affects your science, because I think that's so important, because it affects you, who you are. It makes you question who you are. And it's like, okay, if that person doesn't accept me, does the academic world accept me? Or there's still papers that were peer reviews where they'll say, like, if it's all women team, they'll be like, hey, where's could you add a man to your like team or something like that. I was reading one of the books and it said it like that. I'm like, oh my God, I had no clue. It's
I know.
Bad.
It blows my mind that sometimes it's still that, that clear.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Twitter is doing a good job. You all are doing a great job. You are doing a wonderful job in just bringing awareness and creating, at least preparing the next generation to not be naive and ignorant, and know that anyone can be a scientist. And one of the great things that comes out of the show is I get to learn about so many diverse scientists, but I also get to learn about so much diverse science. So
I know.
No wonder we need diverse scientists, because there is the science is so diverse.
Exactly. Yeah, you need people that are going to approach things differently. And just because I remember someone asking me, oh, like, why does does diversity really help science?
Yeah.
And I just like kind of stared back. Like, what do you say to that?
It's like, duh. Like one of the things I tell people a lot to, like, if they really question this business case for diversity, is you can there's this you can look it up on YouTube, but there is this little picture about, like, a video about different people with blindfolds and trying to recognize an elephant. And so, like, they go in and, like, a group goes and just touches the trunk, and the other group goes and just touches the tail and tries to explain what this elephant looks like, or what this creature looks like. And they all explain it based on what they touched. And so this guy says, oh, it's a tree, because they touched the legs. And they say, oh, if it's a trunk, they say, oh, it's a huge snake, like it's a snake, because they touched the trunk. And so that's exactly what happens when you, first of all, don't have a holistic view of things, but also when you don't have a team, like, which is diverse, like trying to see the whole picture. And solve problems faster. It's even if you're solving like one problem, like, it's so easy. Like, if you're stuck on a problem, just let different people come in the room and help you. Like,
exactly.
It doesn't even have to be science. Like, if it's just something super simple, more people will bring more perspective, which will solve your problem faster. So there's definitely like a solid case for diversity. So you're so inspiring. So tell us that one big takeaway that people can take from your story.
Wow. From this particular story, like leaving the toxic lab, kind of
from your STEM story.
I would say that you will continue, the more you learn, the more you realize there's a lot more to learn in this, and in the sense of there's so much out there, and there's so much more we can explore. And it's not just, in science, but like within, it's trying to study and experiment, because, like you could continue doing experiments, like, and write a very 500 papers, and never really finish a story. But even in the sense of the world is evolving, what inclusion and diversity are always evolving, and you can continue to evolve with them.
Yeah. And I love that, because I think there's an entire generation of baby boomers that probably did not learn as much. And, learning wasn't a thing once you became an adult. But now that's not a case. Like, we need to keep learning and keep those doors open. And as you said, in terms of diversity and inclusion, I'm learning every single day, every single time I talk to a new person. There's another whole perspective and idea of what that means to that particular person, but also to the world of STEM. So before we let you go, Nour, tell us your favorite book.
Oh my God. Oh, wow.
I put you on the spot on that one, huh?
I know. I'm looking at my bookcase, which is across from me right now, trying to remember what's something I really enjoyed reading. I have all the Harry Potter series, of course. I loved that as a kid.
That has been the most answered one.
Yeah. I can see that. From, I guess, I would also say the Quran, which is the Islamic holy book. I have to say that's in my top 10. It's just a book that I've, read often, and I feel like I find something new every time I read it.
Oh, that's awesome. I love religious books. And actually in school, I got to read the Quran because I grew up in India. It's a very secular country. So we had to read, I went to a Christian school that taught us the Quran, the Gita, the Bible,
awesome.
the Buddhist text and all these books. And it's just such a great, all of them had the same lessons. And, in terms of how to live life and how to be a good human being.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that's just so lovely, because again, you're absolutely right. If you pick up one of those books, you're always going to find something new, depending on where you're in life.
Yeah.
What you're going through. And that's why,
exactly. Something you read a year ago might sound different to you now.
Yes. That's awesome. Oh, that's lovely. So again, thank you so much, Nour, for taking the time. And for talking to us today. It was such a pleasure.
It was a pleasure to talk to you as well.
And that was Nour with her amazing STEM story. Please use the links in the episode notes to follow Nour and her amazing work. If you don't already follow us on social media, please use Her STEM Story to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We would love to hear what you think about our show. You can also leave us a review on iTunes. Those help us climb the charts and get discovered quickly. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you again next week. Bye.